In support of these events, OWL is happy to offer many chances to win free subscriptions to OWL for registered attendees. At the end of every webinar, your name will be entered into a chance to win OWL free for 6 months. And each webinar you attend will be a chance to enter the grand prize giveaway where you can get OWL free for a whole year. In addition to these great chances to win, we're also making an offer for CCPA members who sign up for a new plan with OWL, the chance to get their first 2 months for free.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's exciting webinar in partnership with OWL Practice. My name is Zoe Frazier, and I am one of 2 CCPA National Office representatives here to help with today's session. You'll be able to spot us as we have CCPA, ACCP listed next to our names. Before I give the floor to our presenter, Hillary Roberts, I would like to go over a few details. First of all, you will notice that your audio and video are disabled during this webinar. Please note that there may be times in this presentation that will allow you to unmute yourself once you have raised your hand, but otherwise all communication will be done through the chat box. The chat box will be open for conversation with other attendees at the beginning and end of the session. But for the duration of the presentation, all chat messages will be sent only to hosts and panelists. We also encourage you to ask questions through the Q&A tab in your Zoom menu. We're happy to announce that this session is being simultaneously interpreted, making it available in either French or English. To access the French audio, we invite you to select the globe icon in your Zoom menu at the bottom of your screen and select French as your option. We have also enabled closed captioning. Please note that this is being interpreted by AI and may not be perfect. We unfortunately do not have control on how this service may capture what we say. This service will also only capture the English language. Lastly, this event is being recorded and it will be sent to all registrants by next week and available on our website. It is also not eligible for continuing education credits. Thank you all for being here today, and I will now hand it over to Hillary.
Thank you so much. Just one moment. I'm just pulling up the presentation.
Looks great.
Okay, fabulous. Thanks so much, everybody. So welcome today to the webinar. As Zoe said, my name is Hillary Roberts, and I currently hold the position of Director of Sales and Client Services with OWL Practice. Looking back, I have had a ton of experience, was working with different not-for-profits in both a volunteering sense, been volunteering since I was a child, up until now in a professional sense, again, working in the mental health field, which is wonderful. So as I mentioned, I work with OWL Practice. We are a Canadian compliance solution for mental health practitioners to be able to actually manage their practice digitally online. online. As I mentioned, we're completely based in Canada and compliant, which is really wonderful. And my job at the company, I've been with the organization for about 3.5 years in client-facing roles, and currently I'm the Director of Sales and Client Services with OWL. This means that I manage our team that does all of our customer interactions, and I'm really excited to be presenting today on private practice trends to watch out for. Every year, I'm very involved with our team that does work on this private practice report, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, but I'm really excited to be sharing these trends with you. One of my mentors in mental health says that therapists can often feel like a bit of an island, and we're really hoping, again, with this information today, we can help you to learn more about the field and really feel comfortable when working within it. All right. So just a couple of other things. Again, as I mentioned, I have worked with OWL. Outside of work, I live in Toronto, Ontario, in the Midtown area. I'm also very into running on, a lot of the trails that we have in the city, and tending to my many plants, which you can see in the background. I would love to get to know some of the participants today as well. So I would love if you could post in the chat, really just letting us know, first of all, where you're from. Toronto. Oh, wonderful to see some other people here. Oh, wonderful. We have some people in Vancouver, Halifax. Really looks like we have people coast to coast. This is really great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Wow. Oh my gosh, even somebody joining us from Hong Kong. That's fabulous. Great. Wonderful. It really looks like we do have people in Newfoundland, Port Stanley, all over the place. The next question I really wanted to ask everyone is, what type of practitioner are you? With working with OWL, I work with so many different types of practitioners across the country, and I'd love to know again who we have on the call today. Social workers, psychologists, couples and family therapists. Wow, looks like we really have a whole bunch. Psychologists, psychotherapists. Oh, it's great to see that we have so many people from so many different places. Awesome. The next thing I wanted to ask is, who is currently using a practice management system? It's okay if it's not OWL, but I'm curious, are a lot of people, again, kind of still using a bunch of system across the board, or are you using different systems? Looks like we have a lot of OWL users, some people using Jane, which is another Canadian system as well. Lots of OWL users. Oh, that's wonderful. Really great to meet all of you if we haven't spoken before. I do recognize a few of your names though. Awesome. So it does seem like some people really are already using a system, which is great, but there is some people who are not as well. The next thing I really wanted to ask a little bit is just learning about the goals that we do have of our users on the presentation here today. So who here is actually looking to generate more clients for their practice? This is a really common goal we hear. Even if you can just type yes in the chat, if you are looking, again, some no's, some yeses. Wow, some yeses with exclamation marks. Some people are really thrilled about that. That's wonderful. Great. Okay, so that seems like definitely something we will touch on today, is if people, again, are looking for more clients in their practice. And actually, Tori just touched on what I was going to say is the next point, which is who is interested in actually making changes to have more organization around their business. Even if you're already an OWL user or using practice management system, this is a really important thing that can save you hours a month. Awesome. All right, so it does look like a lot of people are looking to really improve more organization as well. So the last thing I just wanted to say to sum up is, it looks like we have a really great diverse group of people today, and I'm so excited to be presenting for you. It's also, I think, really, really interesting to see that we have people that are both looking to get more clients and organizations, so we will be definitely talking about both. All right. The next thing I just wanted to mention is, a little bit of a roadmap before we get into the presentation. We're going to be looking at a lot of really exciting stats today. But I just wanted to mention, today we're looking really at how practitioners spend their time. At OWL, we are big believers in using data to inform business decisions and help you to really grow and change your practice. We work with thousands of Canadian practitioners to improve their business across the system. And this webinar is actually using aggregated and anonymized data from thousands of mental health practitioners and looking at trends from 2019, 2020, and 2021, especially so we can see how things have really changed during the pandemic in the last couple of years. Our hope for you after this presentation is that by understanding where you spend your time and seeing what the trends are within the field, you can identify business practices and be more efficient. So really, one of the things that we're helping you to do is really learn to save more time in your practice so you can see more clients and generate more revenue. All right, so now we're really going to get into the bulk of the presentation. First, looking at this daily client session trend. So this graph right here is showing us the daily trends of when people are having the majority of their sessions. Right away, we can see that Tuesday is the highest day to be holding sessions, closely followed by Wednesday and Thursday. I was really interested when looking into this, actually seeing that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were so much lower than the other sessions. And for myself, I really wondered, is this more therapist driven or client driven? Therapists, it's often a great role because you can set your schedule and be a little bit more flexible. If you like to work in the evenings, you have the option to offer that availability to your clients if it works for them as well. And so I think it's really interesting to actually be looking at this and seeing, is Saturday and Sunday less available because clients want that or because therapists need a work-life balance? Another thing I think is extremely interesting here as well is that we can see steadily a decline in Saturday and Sunday sessions since 2019. I think a lot of this probably has to do with changes with the pandemic and so much of therapy being offered in a virtual way now. You can actually see again that there has been a steady decrease across the 3 years. And whereas some clients, perhaps had different needs during the week, long commutes to work, feeling exhausted, having commitments to their family and having to be home in the evening for them, virtual therapy really eliminates a lot of those kind of roadblocks in the way, allowing people perhaps to, again, take back their weekends, just like a therapist is taking back theirs. So it is hard to say, again, if the sessions of the week are really driven by the therapist schedules or the client schedules, but I think it's really interesting to see how much lower the numbers are on the weekend. That's definitely not something that I was expecting myself. The next area I'd like to look at is session duration. And although it may seem very obvious, I think a lot of us know that the average session really does tend to be an hour. That's not a surprise. I think there's still a lot that we can get out of this slide here. When we're actually looking here right now, you can see that the majority of sessions are either 30 minutes to 1 hour or 1 hour to 90 minutes. It's very interesting for me specifically, especially when working with therapists in the field, because this really indicates to me the change between people who are doing a 50-minute session and billing for it, or billing for an hour-long session. One of the main consultative conversations that we have at Owl Practice with our clients is, how are you going to set up your services and billing? When some people are, again, setting up their services, which is really, I think, something everyone's doing across the field, regardless if you're using a system or not. Some people choose to put 50 minutes as your service length. This is, again, for many people, a bit more accurate to the actual time spent in session. Sometimes that last 10 minutes is used for payments or wrapping up, getting ready for your next call, etc. Whereas some people, again, choose to bill for 60 minutes. We find that mostly the difference here is according to what your clients need, especially to bill in a third party. Some insurance companies are a little bit more specific about what they'll accept versus 50 and 60-minute sessions. And so I think it's really often up to the client and up to the therapist to have a discussion about what's going to work best for them. Is it a private pay where they're paying themselves and there's a little bit less that matters there? Or are they working with a really strict insurance company that's going to have some feelings about that? I think overall, something I was surprised about as well is when we look at the lower end of this, our data was a little bit more granular about the 30-minute sessions as well. It indicated to me that a lot of people actually are doing kind of a free or an intro session with their clients. I know this is something that's really trending across the field, ensuring that you have a good relationship prior to starting that journey together. But that's something we saw as well as, again, those shorter sessions on the end of the 30-minute side, really being a lot of people who are doing that free trial with their clients to see, if it's a good fit. The next slide looks a little bit at attendance session rating, and I think this is extremely interesting to look at the 3 years and how there has been changes across the field. The first thing that I do want to point out, looking at the 2019 to 2020 to 2021, we can see that the attendance rate has steadily increased across the last 3 years, going from 79% to 81 to 82. I know that these seem like extremely small numbers in terms of percentage, but I think it's important for us to all note that 1% represents hundreds of thousands of sessions that people are doing with their clients. And this represents, again, hours of face time that clients are getting and assistance that they are getting for practitioners, across Canada. I was really, really heartened to see that our attendance rating has increased. And again, thinking across the last 3 years, you're actually also going to notice when we look at the statistics, the cancellation rate has steadily decreased as well. So again, in 2019, we had 13% cancellations, whereas in 2020, it fell to 11, and 2021, it's fallen to 10%. It's wonderful, again, to think that so many less clients are being forced to schedule or to cancel a session. And again, reasons like that could be burnout from work and life, scheduling conflicts. And it's really great to see that, again, so many people are trending towards being able to attend a session and therapy being more accessible than the other way around. This was a really exciting slide for us to see. Something else I really wanted to mention here is the late cancel numbers. You can see that these pretty consistently hover around 1 to 2%. And what this represents in OWL actually as a late cancellation is a cancellation where your client has canceled within the period in which you charge them. I think it's also very interesting to see that the late cancellation has slightly decreased since the pandemic started. And it's very interesting to think, have practitioners lessen those policies, knowing that their clients are having a more difficult time perhaps? Are people finding that they need to do less cancellation fees as they're seeing less cancellations overall, or whatever it may be? I think it's a really important thing to point out that perhaps the industry, again, is trending away from charging people for a late cancellation of sessions. The last thing I just wanted to mention here is non-billable, as I think that's quite interesting to see as well. I just wanted to mention that you can always, mark non-billables for things like a pro bono session or those sessions I just mentioned a few minutes ago where you are doing a bit of an intro with your client. All right. Just looking into our next slide. This is talking about going beyond the 9 to 5. So in this one, I'd love to engage people a little bit in the chat again, just to get some information about what we're seeing here. So when we look here, you can see that really the majority of people are working evenings and weekends overall. So I'd love to see in the chat if people could post. Sorry, I just got a bit distracted. I thought my audio was off, but it's just somebody else. That's great. So I just wanted to ask first, who here is working evenings or weekends? You can say evenings, weekends, or both, but I would love to see in the chat, what are you working? Both. Evenings, both, evenings, neither. Oh, good for you. Both evenings, a lot of evenings, a lot of both evenings. All right, so I can see here it is really trending that a lot of people are working evenings. And for those people who are working evenings specifically, I'm curious, are you doing more administrative catch up in the evenings, or are you doing more sessions itself? Sessions, both, administrative catch up, a lot of people posting about sessions. I can completely understand that, as it's extremely accessible for clients to, again, be able to talk about something after work. Some people, again, saying 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. is the latest. So I'll just clarify for us, when we talk about evenings, it's from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. So especially people who are kind of doing those early evening sessions, you would have been captured in this number here as well. It's wonderful to hear that so few people are kind of doing admin in the evenings. I've actually someone myself who has worked from home since I started with OWL. And so I've been a remote worker for about 3.5 years now. And I find for myself, sometimes I actually really enjoy working in the evenings. It can be nice just to kind of sit on the couch and get through some monotonous tasks with something a little fun on in the background. But I think a real key for me is I enjoy doing this work. It's when somebody is pushed that they have to be doing this work, consistently on the evenings or weekends, that it becomes really difficult or unattainable to have that work-life balance. When we actually pivot a little bit to look at weekends worked, can we again have people just call out, if you're working weekends, are you doing sessions or admin work? What's really taking up your time? No weekends, people doing both sessions and admin work. Both, a lot of both on here, and a lot of admin. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing some people are offering Saturday sessions, which is great to see. Also, so flexibility for your clients. The one thing that I thought was particularly interesting about weekends is if you actually remember a couple of slides back, we saw that so few sessions are actually happening on Saturdays and Sundays. And so that's a really good indicator that for the weekends that people are working, it's often less time session and more time admin work. I think looking at this graph, it does show us that it is extremely normal for practitioners to actually be working beyond the 9 to 5, whether that's something you enjoy or not. As I mentioned, something for myself, I do really like the flexibility of being able to perhaps work a little bit outside of those hours, and that can be a really wonderful part of your job. But this is also sometimes an indication for people who may need to do some extra administrative catch up or something during the day. Perhaps there's systems that you can be putting in place to help yourself be more efficient so you aren't doing admin work in the evenings and weekends if that's not a choice you want to be making. All right. So this next slide is actually the slide I'm most excited to present to you all today. And this is average sessions by month per practitioner. So I wanted to start by highlighting and mentioning that the light blue is the sessions in 2019, so before COVID. The dark blue is the sessions in 2020. So during and after, again, well, during and after, of course, is 2021. When we look here, you can actually see that the average number of sessions per month per practitioner has increased substantially throughout the years. We found that when we crunched all of these numbers, this was actually showing a total of a 43% increase for each practitioner from 2019 to 2021 of growth. I think this is incredibly interesting, and it shows how much more accessible mental health has become, whether that is a reduction in stigmatization that has happened in the last couple of years, allowing people to feel more comfortable seeking out therapy when they do have a need for it in their everyday life, or whether this is the fact that virtual therapy has made therapy more accessible for people all across the country. Another thing we can also, I think, all really relate to is we've really felt a need for mental health services in Canada in the past 2 years. This is no surprise to, I don't think, any of us when we look at the substantial amount of increase of services. I'm sure a lot of you have felt this in your business as well. The final thing I did kind of want to mention and engage with you all here is I found some of the trends, especially in 2021, quite interesting, where you see some of the highest numbers of sessions. For example, March 2021 is our highest number of average sessions per month for the users. I believe, oops, I was hoping if I hovered over, I could see the exact number. Sorry about that. Oh. There we go. I was hoping if I hovered, I'd be able to see the exact number, but it's not quite possible. But we can see again, 1 year following the start of the pandemic was the highest number of sessions. I'm curious if that's surprising to people or not. You know, did you expect again to see such a high number at that time? Again, we look at June, which in our business, we really see as a time of slowing down, school's finishing up, and a lot of people are going on vacation. It's interesting to think again, who is seeking services at this time? Were these a lot of services for children who are finishing up the school year and able to access their sessions and things like that? The last one, again, I wanted to point out is November of 2021. Again, not a big surprise for me, as November is definitely a higher traffic month as the days start to get shorter, as well as people are starting to use up their benefit plans. But I do think it's quite interesting when we look at these 3 months as the highest points through the year. It's not necessarily what I expected when thinking of the highest session times. We often think of January and December around the holidays as quite high. All right, the next thing that we did want to highlight for you is billing and payments, and really how that has changed over the past 3 years. Here we're highlighting 3 of the main ways that people are paying within the system. And in the next slide, we're actually going to look at the time after payments and kind of how all of this will relate to your accounts receivable as practice owners. When we look first here at e-transfer, we can actually see that there has been an astronomical increase over the last couple of years from 2019, again reflected in the light blue, into the green reflected into 2021. I'm sure we can all imagine a lot of reasons for this. First of all, with a lot less people actually performing in-person sessions, it's obvious that people need to find a way to pay digitally. E-transfer is a wonderful way to do this, as it does often keep costs very low, as it can be free or very inexpensive on both the therapist and client side to administer. E-transfer is, again, really easy. Many people are familiar with it, and there's a lot of great things about it. Something else I did want to mention that's actually not reflected in this chart, but a trend that we did find was that the decline of credit card point of sale machines. So again, anyone who had perhaps a Moneris machine or something along those lines in their office where they were taking payments, we found a decline of that from 30% in 2019 all the way down to about 15% in 2021. And of course, again, it makes sense that people would not be using this as they're not doing as many in-person sessions. But I did think it was quite interesting to mention that credit card, where a card has to actually be present and the client is presenting at the time of the session, has decreased so significantly in the past few years, as well as e-transfers increased. You may actually notice the second column here is Stripe, which is actually Owl's integrated credit card processing system. So we, of course, have some data on this as well. You can see in 2019, the percentage of users using Stripe hovered at a little less than 5%. And now up in 2021, we're hovering at about 20% usership for this, which is quite a dramatic increase as well. Using a payments system that is integrated and doesn't require you to actually have your client's card present can be extremely beneficial for AR in so many ways. As you can imagine, having a client's card on file allows you as the practitioner to actually be able to control the payments a little bit more yourself. No longer are you at the mercy of a client sending you an e-transfer, providing cash or any other sort of payment. Again, once you have their credit card details and that agreement that you can just simply charge them after a session, it does produce some really significant improvements to people's AR as well. The third thing I just wanted to mention here is third-party direct, as we do work with a lot of people who, again, are working with insurance companies and billing them. You can see that there has been a little drop in the last year, and I think part of this is attributed to the fact that our system has actually introduced an e-claims feature. So this is actually allowing clinicians to now process their claims right within the system. Meaning you don't have to always indicate third-party direct, as you can get paid right through the system by the insurance companies, which is a really wonderful improvement as well. Also, again, allowing people to increase their AR. This next slide I wanted to talk about is payment times. And as you can see here, overwhelmingly, people are having their sessions paid out within 2 hours. This again shows really the work of e-transfers. Often clients are e-transferring ahead of a session and ensuring that they have provided the therapist with that money ahead of time. But what we can also see here, I think, is that although around 2 hours is a really good response time, and we are seeing an overwhelming majority of people paying within then, there is a lot of other room for improvement here. Never is hovering over 10%. 1 month, within a month, between 2 weeks and a month, that's hovering between 15 and 20%. And 1 week is also hovering about 15% as well. And so again, although this is great and a lot of people are getting paid out within a month, that does require extra administrative work on your part as well. This means tracking to ensure clients are paying, remembering to record any e-transfers or other payments in your system to make sure that this is reflected after the fact. And also this can involve chasing clients a little bit, sometimes sending reminders of payments and things like that. Of course, we want to acknowledge that sometimes there's payment difficulties, but we're really talking about overall AR here. When looking at this, again, it's important to kind of think, are you at your practices struggling with your accounts receivable? As we can see, clients who have never paid is up substantially from 2020 as well. And so is this something you're struggling with? Could doing something like integrating a credit card system right within your practice and allowing your clients to, again, enter their credit card information once through a secure portal and allow you to charge it going forward, is that something that would really help benefit you? Is that something you could get this less than 2 hours up to an even higher number and take these less than 1 month payments to even lower? I think it's really wonderful to always consider what you can be doing in terms of payments to make it more easily and accessible for your clients. If they can do something like, again, enter a payment one time and not have to worry about consistently sending you an e-transfer week to week to week, it does take the onus off of them, one less thing for them to worry about, and again, allows you to take that control back on your AR and ensure you're always getting paid for your sessions. So this next slide, actually, I found a little bit surprising, and I think we have a few explanations as to why this may be. As you can see, there has been a substantial drop in discounted sessions in our data from 2019 through to 2021. Actually, sorry, this data point's wrong right here. This should say 2021. But I think there's also some explanations for this. We've heard anecdotally from our users that a lot of them are continuing to actually offer services at a discounted rate throughout the pandemic. I know personally, I spoke with a lot of people who were offering discounts to things like frontline workers or other people who may not be able to, again, afford therapy. So I think that this data perhaps does have some tweaks to it. We found that in this way, where we are showing it off, that the discounted sessions are actually discounted in a way that is hidden from the client. So again, they're not kind of getting reminded they're getting discounted therapy, whereas at some instances, it can be really important to reflect on a receipt that you are getting a discounted session. So again, some of these numbers that are saying not discounted could actually be a discounted session where it was marked intentionally as discounted to make it more easy for that client to, again, perhaps submit it to their insurance companies or other options like that. This doesn't mean that, again, everybody is trending towards no longer discounting therapeutic sessions. It just means perhaps people are doing it in different ways. As I said, anecdotally, we have heard this is still very popular within the field and something people are very much doing. This next slide, again, talks a little bit about video therapy, and the rest of the presentation, I think, does focus a little bit more kind of on virtual therapy and communicating with clients. Again, something I'm going to note here is this is, again, focusing on Owl Practice's video solution, as that is part of the data that we do have here. For example, you can see the rise of percentage sessions that are video. I can imagine for people who are also using other services like Zoom that may be a bit more familiar to their clients who may not be so tech savvy. Some people, again, are also doing phone sessions, we've heard as well. So not always are clients comfortable presenting on video as well. They may just prefer to do a phone session. So I think, again, we can assume that these numbers would be a little bit inflated if we did have a bit more all-encompassing data, but that's really what we're looking at here. You can see, again, though, the rise of people using an integrated video solution since the beginning of COVID is quite astronomical. Owl also, just, it's worth mentioning, did not have a video solution right at the beginning. It took us about 3 months to get into it. So many people had also signed other contracts and have now made a change to a system that kind of does encompass everything all in one: video, billing, payments, and things like that. When we're actually looking here at percentage of all therapists using video, you can see that this has been a steady incline as well. We did have about 71% of people doing this in 2021, which honestly I thought would be a little bit higher as well. It seemed that everybody was offering services virtually, except those who were unable to, perhaps offering assessments or other sessions that can only be offered in person. But again, it's really interesting to see that the rate does continue to climb, even as people are now more out of their homes and perhaps returning to in-person sessions. I think this says a lot about how video therapy has made going to therapy accessible for a lot more people. We've also heard of a lot of clients who may be seeing therapists who specialize in something, but are actually not geographically accessible. For example, I'm in Toronto and may want to see a therapist who is in somewhere like Owen Sound, which is hours away, but digitally it's completely possible to work with someone who suits my needs and might be out there. This next area actually looks like clinical notes, and I think this is so interesting as well. We're going to come back to the incomplete in a moment, but I do want to tell you not to worry. It doesn't mean that people aren't completing their notes. We have some very logical explanations for why that might be. But first, I would love to focus on the less than 2 hours. I think it's interesting how overwhelmingly almost 50% of people are finishing and completing a session note within 2 hours. This does allow people, again, to have the information fairly fresh in their head before they've completed more sessions and get it signed and out of the way. This is something I think that really shows how efficient people can be with a system. You know, it doesn't take you all day to be doing your notes. It's something a lot of people are really staying on top of, and an administrative need that seems to be being met really well by practitioners. When we look at the more than 24 hours, a lot of this we can attribute to people who are working with a clinical supervisor who has to supervise their notes. I'm sure as many of you know who have been supervised or work with a supervisor, it can be a bit of a back and forth process. Perhaps it does take a little bit more time for the supervisor to read the notes and actually review them and finish the sign off. It's important to note here, the percentages are when a note is finally complete. So if it does have a supervisor who is assigned to that note, it wouldn't be until they were finished as well. So I think that's part of the reason for the larger discrepancy there is we do work with a lot of people who are under clinical supervision. And I think that is very well reflected in the more than 24-hour notes, as it can just be a little bit of a different process. As I mentioned, I wanted to address the incomplete notes as well. And as I said, don't panic. This just shows that there's a lot of different ways that people do kind of process their notes. This is actually looking at people who are doing digital notes. And as you may know, with your colleges and things like that, there are a lot of regulations that people do need to follow to ensure that their notes are being done properly and handled in the right way and meeting compliance. If you are showing as incomplete on here, it probably means for the most part, you're just not doing digital notes. OWL actually accommodates people who may want to even do a handwritten note, like on a piece of paper, and upload that to the file afterwards. It also accommodates people, again, who maybe doing notes in another platform or actually using our handwritten notes feature. So using a tablet and a stylus to be writing right on there. I think this is definitely more of an indication that people are doing notes still in many different ways, not just typing them into a practice management system, but it does show that there is a lot of variation in the field. You know, some people are never going to want to let the pen and paper go. I'm one of those people, so I understand. I think it just really shows that there is still kind of differing trends there of people who may be more comfortable, you know, transcribing digital notes and those who maybe are not quite there yet. This next slide looks a little bit at session locations in 2021. So this question specifically is, are you hosting in-person sessions? And we can see here that 47% of our users were hosting in-person sessions. I think it's important to note that this does not mean that they were exclusively hosting in-person sessions. You know, this could have been for one client or many clients. I think it's also important to mention as well that, of course, there are some services that just simply cannot be offered online. For example, assessments must be done in person. You know, some people also work with populations where doing digital therapy is just not feasible. Perhaps they don't have access to technology and need to be serviced in person, or again, perhaps you're a frontline worker. I think what's also really interesting here is looking at the other 53% of this pie. When we look here, we can see 13% of people are only operating online. And although I don't have statistics from 2019 or 2020 with this exact question, I think we can imagine that this must be a dramatic increase. You know, I knew hardly anybody who operated a solely online practice before 2019, but this is now an extremely feasible way to run your business. You can see clients who may be in different counties or all sorts of things. It allows you to really lean into a specialization as well. And again, see clients from all across the province if possible. I think it's also interesting to look at, again, the 40% of people who were having difficulty within their region. So 2% of these people were still not able to actually be conducting sessions, but I think it's so interesting to look at the 38% who were able to be doing in-person sessions again and chose actually to continue to do remote sessions at the time. It's interesting to think whether this was something that was really important for their clients. You know, was this something where your clients, again, are now geographically far away from you and you need to consider to offer virtual therapy? Is this something where your clients are actually finding that this is so convenient for them, they don't want to go back to the way that it was? We've heard of practitioners, you know, no longer renting office space and setting up in their homes. So I think this chart really gives us a lot to think about with the way that business is transformed. I would actually, again, love to consult the chat and ask people, are you currently doing in-person sessions, or is the majority of your sessions still online? Are you noticing in both the mix? Currently online only, we're seeing a lot of people back to doing both. A lot online, a lot virtual. And again, for the people who are online only, would you again mention, did you do online only before, or is this again something now that you're online only, it's, just because of this big change? Was in person before? That's really interesting. So we do have a participant. Someone's always been virtual, staying online for now. Yeah, so a lot of people, again, who were in person are now offering this. So I think that's really interesting. Did no virtual until the pandemic. That's really interesting, Glenn. We're finding this as well. Even some of the practitioners I can remember having conversations with at the beginning of the pandemic of how possibly they could transition their business, which they were so used to running in person, virtually. We helped so many people through this transition in the early days of the pandemic. I think it's so interesting now to see people who really did not believe about the effectiveness of virtual sessions become total converts and actually feel really comfortable with the fact that this is something that they can now offer their clients and make themselves even more accessible. I think, again, when we talked about growing our businesses at the beginning as well, and so many people who are looking into this, we've seen how other people in the community have really made this into a business opportunity for them, only offering online that can save you money on office space and, again, make you available to all sorts of different types of clients. All right, this next slide is also something that I just find extremely interesting for us to look at as a group. Again, as we know, therapists are often kind of on their own. And I think this is a really cool way to show how a therapist can actually stretch themselves outside of a session. Offering resources is such an important part of the client interaction and really helping them to be successful with coping techniques outside of a practice. We polled our users to see what people are tending to use the most in their practice, and we thought we would share this information with you. So again, you can benefit from this and see again what's most popular across the field. So just to start, we can see that apps are extremely popular. Meditation apps, things like Headspace or Calm are really common ones that are used, as well as mindfulness apps are recommended by up to 63 and almost 70% of users. There's also things like online CBT programs. I know in Ontario, we had a platform that was offered, I believe, through the government that was extremely popular with users during the pandemic. Also, again, online therapy apps, another way that people can kind of stretch themselves a bit further. Two of the other ones I really wanted to focus on is group therapy and support style sessions. So we heard a lot during the pandemic about people who, had such an influx of clients that they had to figure out a new way to actually service them. They were getting so many clients, they weren't able to provide services, and their wait lists were becoming extremely long. In this way, a lot of people pivoted and were able to provide support style groups. So clients, again, were able to benefit in that together, or again, offering group therapy sessions so you can service more than one client at once. I think we all know that these are particularly beneficial for certain clients and their presenting concerns. And it's wonderful, again, that some people have pivoted to really be able to offer services to more people at once and ensure that everybody is getting care without stretching themselves too far. Another interesting thing here, again, is podcasts and videos are offered by over 50% of practitioners. That's so, a really high number for me. Podcasts can range from any sort of thing, from encouraging to actual coping techniques to some podcasts even promote meditation and things like that as well. Videos are so great on YouTube and stuff. There's lots of resources I've heard therapists recommending. And finally, this really heartened me as a reader at heart, seeing that books are still offered by about 28% of our users. I thought, they were all like old and done with all of the meditation apps and new technology that we have, but it is really great to see that quite a high percentage of people are really still offering books to a lot of their users. This next slide is talking a little bit about communicating with your clients. Here we look at the fact that email is 42% the highest, and I don't think anyone is particularly surprised about that. I think even before the pandemic, we really found that email was, a highly used thing for people to be able to communicate to their clients. It's nice and traceable. You can write down instructions and clients can refer back to them at any time, so there's no surprise here. I can imagine, though, that there was a reduction in the in-session communication being done. Now that people are having to spend time connecting, or again, there's not that little period where you're perhaps walking somebody out of your office, doing their payment, getting them a glass of water at the start. It does mean that there is a little bit less in-session communication. I think when we also think about any practices that work with an administrator, you are also ensuring that like the in-session could include the admin. Perhaps again, when the client is paying, they're providing them with some information about closures in the future or things along those lines. So although we don't have past data, I can imagine that in-session used to be higher as well. When we look at the remaining, 12 or so percent here, these are all using digital forms of communication. The first one, secure messaging, I'm just going to address as this is actually a feature unique to OWL. This is an instant chat style communication that you can use with your clients, but it's completely secure. Your client needs to log in, to their client portal to actually access any messages, which means that any of the information that a therapist provides is much more secure than email. Although that we can see email is widely used by practitioners, I think all of us also know that it's not a particularly compliant solution. It's definitely okay for some light communication, but anything containing personal health information should really not be discussed through email with your clients. The secure messaging feature that we do offer is often a replacement for email. You completely set expectations with your clients about how there will be response times and when those will be. But secure messaging allows you again to send messages back and forth about clients' information because it is completely secure. It also actually allows you to also send documents back and forth. So if you are providing homework to your clients and they're returning that to you, secure messaging is a great way to keep that all in a secure place and ensuring that you're not using email for something like that. Also, 2% of our users are using the online booking portal, which I think is really great to see. We can see here that within the portal, you're able to post more updates. Practice website is also highly used as well. And I think both of these are really used for similar things. It's interesting to see that people are posting things on here, like perhaps initial communication for those prospective clients, descriptions of your services, how you do practice. Are you doing it in person? Are you doing it online? All of that information as well. I'll also just address that 7% other. This was mostly people who were saying I use multiple forms of communication. So perhaps I use secure messaging and in-session communication with my clients. We didn't really see anything too new coming up there, mostly just people saying they really use a combination of ways to speak with their clients, which I think a lot of us are doing anyways. All right, so that was everything I did want to show you for our trends today. I did want to mention again that OWL Practice is really a system set up to help you to meet organizational goals. As you can see, we work with so many users across Canada and do have a very robust understanding of their needs. We're always working to incorporate mental health trends to ensure that our users are happy. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to explore our website or again, email us at support@owlpractice.ca. I would also love to hear from anybody who's attended the presentation, especially if you do have more questions about the data. I'd be happy to set up a call with you or any sort of discussion around that. You can always feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Hillary with 1L Roberts. And finally, I'm going to pass it back to Zoe just so we can go over again some of the prizes that we're offering this month.
All right, so thank you so much, Hillary, for that wonderful informational presentation. I learned a lot about this. Of course, I'm not a practitioner myself, so it's just good information to have on my end and very interesting. I love stats. But in our partnership with OWL, we are offering to all CCPA members for the duration of April the opportunity to get their first 2 months free of OWL membership. This is specifically for people who are not currently with OWL, but for the people who are already with OWL, we do have some fun goodies. We have a giveaway of 6 months free at every single attended webinar. And today we've already drawn the name. I'll get to that in a second. And we've also got a grand prize, which is 1 year free of OWL Practice subscription. So that means the more events you attend, the more times your name is going to be put in the draw, and the more chances you'll have to win this one prize of 1 year of OWL Practice subscription. The winner today of the 6 free months of OWL is Kingman Chan. So I will be in communications with you in the next few days to walk you through, getting that prize and putting you in communications with someone from OWL. And Hillary, are you willing to answer a few questions here? We've got a few that popped up.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. So just to confirm, I'm looking into the Q&A questions. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can look into the Q&A, and we've also kind of kept track of questions here and there. So I would say start with the Q&A and then we'll go through the rest.
Awesome.
Or as many as we can, of course.
Of course. So the first one I see is that someone's asking about the average sessions per month. And if you're interpreting it correctly, it's about 1 to 2 sessions per day based on 5 days a week. So yes, it is. And I know that might sound extremely low for some people who are looking to do about 5 or 6 sessions a day, but I would like to just remind everyone this is an average. So we work with some people who, again, are extremely part-time, maybe doing, less than 5 sessions a month. They're working at a group practice and really just using OWL on the side. So I think, again, although that session is lower, I think what we're really focusing on is the growth, because again, if this is the average, the highest number of sessions that people are doing must be quite high for a lot of users to really balance out those people are perhaps doing only a few sessions a week. So then Catherine asks, once the tools are in place, how do you charge a credit card between OWL and Stripe? It's really, really easy, Catherine. And actually, if you do want to hop on a support call, one of our team members would be super happy to show you that. It's just like recording any payment. You literally just select the payment method as the credit card and record the payment, and it charges the credit card at that time. All right, the next question, is there anywhere where non-OWL users can learn about the functions or basic 101 of the features? Yeah, absolutely, Andrea, that's a wonderful question. We offer free demos that are customized to all of our users. We schedule these every day at 12 or 3 p.m. So you can, again, just email our team support at OWL Practice, and we'd be happy to teach you about that. Again, there's no commitment to sign up or join or anything. It is just, again, allowing you to really learn the basics of practice management and what we offer. Can you separate stats into part-time versus full-time? Yeah, Julie, absolutely. I think that's something we do cover a little bit more in the private practice report that we turn out every year. It definitely is a little bit more robust, but for today, we were, again, just looking at kind of the aggregated data. That's a really good suggestion though. Just a comment from Rima here. Actually, this is so helpful, and I'm so happy you brought this up, Rima. The CRPO requires a reading for the sliding scale fee, but the invoice at OWL does not have an option of providing that reason. So when we actually look at the discount feature, this could, again, really explain why some of those people are not using the discount feature in OWL. A lot of our users are not comfortable with showing why something has been discounted, whereas other things like the CRPO does require this to be shown on an invoice. So again, we do have some flexibility in the system to ensure that people can do that, but that's a really good reason, again, as to why we may have seen the discount numbers a little bit lower as other people are using other interventions to meet their college guidelines. The next question, can you sync your notes from note-taking tool in Remarkable to the OWL notes section? So yeah, this is a great question. We don't actually have a sync, but using Remarkable, you're able to easily download a PDF and just add that right into OWL. We even have a really cool drag and drop feature you can use from your desktop, just putting the file right there and dragging it right into your platform. So it really is, super easy to use. Any other questions?
We've got a few in the chat. I've kept track of them as well throughout the presentation. And we did have a question of how do we access the recording of this session? That'll be a me question. I will send it out to everyone within the next 3 business days. It will also be available on our website, so you'll get all of that. I have a question here of how long is the information stored in secure messaging?
Indefinitely. Yeah, that information is stored forever because you can have those conversations. We even have some practitioners at OWL that actually use it to do chat style therapy. I know some of you may be familiar with a platform like BetterHelp that does actually allow people to text therapists. Some people even use secure messaging to do that. So again, those logs are extremely important and part of a client file. So those are, again, always available and stored within their account.
Phenomenal. We've got a question here that says, is there a way for iOS users to get video session option? It seems that phone users have a harder time with video.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So if you are an iOS user, you can definitely have some difficulties with accessing video on your phone. The reason for this is just computers and phones. I guess the best simple way to say it is they're quite different devices. Computers have a lot more built in to ensure that you have better connectivity, whereas a phone is just a less superior device, which can definitely hinder some sort of connections. You can always access OWL video on iOS through Safari. It's just simply not available through Chrome. And that is because iOS actually doesn't allow Chrome permission to a webcam. It's a limitation of the device. They only allow permission to webcam through Safari.
Thank you. We have, will the emails be translated into different languages based on client's language?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Our financial documents can be set to be French or English for each of your clients, but for emails, you would need to provide a French and English version in both. There's no kind of option to make that choice at the time. It would just be any of their documents, again, that could be available in either language. And like I said, that's really set on a client basis. So if you do work with some English clients and some French clients, that's no problem at all. You just set it on a client by client basis.
Thank you. Will there be an audio text-to-speech feature on OWL in the future?
Yeah, that is something we actually get requested all the time and is a really wonderful suggestion. It's not a feature that we're currently working on at the moment, but I can tell you there is some great dictation softwares that are compatible with OWL. I've heard of Dragon Dictation and I've heard some other great ones as well. So although it's not a feature that we have within the platform and we're not working on at the moment, you can again run another dictation software and it's compatible with the system.
Thank you so much for answering all these questions. I've got more here. Can you give an example of the group support style?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of this, we've really heard about this for youth, especially. So again, one of the support groups that someone mentioned to us was like a youth style support group for teens who were having trouble with being stuck at home during the pandemic. So that's an example. I know a lot of people, again, do support style groups with clients with eating disorders as well, as again, kind of having that interaction with each other can also be beneficial in the client's relationship. Sometimes it's great to, again, be working with other clients, bouncing ideas off of them, feeling like something is normalized, or again, drawing your attention to something you may learn in a session and hearing it from a client versus the therapist. So there's, so many different kinds. Those are just a couple examples we've heard.
Perfect. Does OWL plan to link with Square in the future?
We don't have any plans to link with Square at this time.
Okay, thank you. And does OWL take a part of interest, a certain percentage for any transaction or payment?
We do not. With Stripe, all of the fees, actually, we don't kind of get a kickback at all. It's just the standard fee for every single client. Or for every single practice. It's 2.9% of the transaction plus 30 cents. And like I said, we don't get a kickback at all. That's just the price that Stripe charges our users.
Next question, will there be a feature to confirm that video links were sent to clients?
There actually already is a feature to confirm
Awesome.
that. So really excited. We've just rolled that out.
Perfect, perfect. And will OWL be incorporating a business expenses feature?
So that's not, again, something we're looking to add at this time. We found that a lot of our users are really comfortable with paid solutions that they do have available. Wave is one that we hear about a lot. It is something that we do consistently talk about though. So it's definitely something I think we can stay tuned for in the future, just not something our team is working at this current moment.
Thank you so much. And that's the most of the questions here that I've got logged. If there's any other questions, people can feel free to put them in the chat there. And I had a quick question. The stats that were presented today, is there a handout of sorts that could be available?
Yeah, I can absolutely provide my slideshow to you if you would like. I think it usually has like most of the stats pretty clearly represented on it, and I'd be happy to provide that to users if they're interested.
That would be amazing. And I've got a question that just came in through the Q&A feature. Will OWL have a library like Jane does to access forms?
Yeah, so we actually handle forms a little bit differently in OWL. These are created by your practice yourself. We don't kind of have that library feature that Jane does with the sharing. But again, our team can always help you to create your own forms because these are intake and consent forms. I think Jane also offers some neat features for kind of template sharing, which we do plan to incorporate in some of the other areas of the product, just not in forms at this time.
Perfect. For the handwritten notes, do I have to create a new template for each and every note? I plan to use an iPad.
Yeah, great question, Bree. You can actually create your own notes under the manage or your own templates under the manage section of OWL. If you go in, you'll see there's a little tab for handwritten notes, and it allows you to actually create a template. So for example, if you wanted to upload an image in there, you can just insert it into the template or into your note every single time. Or again, if you even wanted to make some changes to that image, you can make kind of like a layered template and have that added to your notes. It's a pretty easy process, and we do outline it in our FAQs. But again, if you do have any questions or any of you have any questions, our team is always happy to help. We offer, live customer support, and all of our support is also free. You never have to pay, even if you're not a customer and you're just kind of interested in the system. Like I said, all of our support is free. So we'd really love to chat with you.
All right, with that, thank you so much, Hillary, for your wonderful presentation today and your patience in answering all these questions. And it's truly, truly appreciated. And a big thank you to Al for being our lead partner for Counseling and Psychotherapy Month and supporting CCPA in all of our initiatives this month. And with that, I do have a quick poll to have everyone fill out if you can. And this just allows us to see what you're up to this month. And if anyone and everyone can fill this out and let me know what you'll be doing this month. And yeah, lots of people with, the webinars, and we've got some people with Yellow Day. Yes, Yellow Day. Today is Yellow Day. We ask that anyone utilize the color yellow in their day, whether that be having some Post-its that are yellow and putting them all over, wearing yellow, or even just using something that's yellow like a mug. We invite you to do that to support counselors and psychotherapists in Canada. I love to see that so many people are promoting Yellow Day. Super pumped about that. And people are thanking a therapist, using our cards, sharing information on the Hill campaign, as well as advocating. And that advocating piece is there year-round. So if you want to advocate for your profession, that's a great way to do so as well.